All right, thank you. We'll call the meeting to order. And before we begin tonight, we're remembering Sam Gitzloff tonight, his mother Brittany, and father Matt, and brother Henry today. So please keep them all in your thoughts this week and going forward. And with that, we'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Jack Heineman, Aaron Moran,
Here.
Chris Zellner, Kristen Runge,
Here.
Sam Kaufman,
Here.
Teresa Hansen,
Here.
Nyla Fry.
Here.
And one note for the record, Trustee Heineman is participating virtually and has joined the meeting.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is confirmation of open meeting compliance.
This meeting was properly posted on August 14th with compliance of Wisconsin open meeting law. Anybody in the audience, please be sure you've signed in for accurate record keeping. And anybody with public comment or public hearing forms, please turn those into Lauren and she will go ahead and give you a time to speak.
All right. Public comment is next on the agenda then. Do we have any items for public comment?
Yep, I've got one form, Tim Kiefer at 205 Kearney Way in Waunakee.
And as Tim's coming to the microphone, anyone participating online who wishes to speak under public comment, click raise hand and we'll give you that opportunity.
Here we go.
My name is Tim Kiefer and I live at 205 Kearney Way. I am a resident of Creekside Condominiums. The condos where 4 units were flooded by sewage on 2 occasions this past summer. My own unit was not affected by the sewage floods, so I myself suffered no direct loss. In this public comment, I'm speaking only for myself and I'm not representing the condo association or any individual unit owner. I was disappointed when I read on the front page of the Waunakee Tribune Enterprise that the village violated the law by failing to report the first sewage flood to the DNR within 24 hours, as required by DNR regulations. The staff at Waunakee Utilities are wastewater management professionals, and as such, they are reasonably expected to know the relevant DNR regulations. I was shocked to find out that the general manager of Waunakee Utilities, quote, was unaware of the 24-hour reporting requirements, end quote, according to the reporting by the Tribune Enterprise. And I want to take a moment here to thank the Tribune Enterprise for their investigative reporting, for uncovering this and notifying the public about the non-compliance notices that were issued to the village. As a result of the village's failures to follow the law, the village has now been issued 2 notices of non-compliance by the DNR. The fact that the village has now been publicly reprimanded by the DNR should be cause for a thorough investigation by the village into how these failures occurred. You, the people who are sitting in front of me, are the village president and the village board, and thus the buck stops with you on managing the village, including managing Waunakee Utilities, which is part of the village government. These sewage floods caused tens of thousands of dollars in monetary damage. They harmed the health and well-being of the residents whose homes were repeatedly flooded with raw sewage. I urge you to accept responsibility for the village's failure to obey the law and to take appropriate steps to ensure that this never happens again. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight, Tim. Do we have any other comments? Do we have anyone online who would like to make a comment? If you're online and would like to make a comment, please raise your hand. We'll bring you into the meeting. Seeing no hands raised and no more comments, we will close public comment and we'll move on to consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they would like pulled from the consent agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Do we have a-
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item up then is reports and announcements. First item, or first committee is Parks and Rec.
So we just had one item at Parks last week, I guess. And it was in regards to the skateboard park and flying the flag. The Lions Club requested flying the flag and putting it in for us. And staff had some concerns with the number of flags we're getting throughout the park and the cost and the time frame to do those and handle those. So we tabled it so we could form a policy on how we were going to handle flags in the parks at this time.
All right, thank you. Next up is Public Works,
Full meeting this month.
Plan Commission.
Have it open. We approved an SIP and final plat for Heyday. Plat will be coming here. Talking later in this meeting about the CSM for a new warehouse at Badger Amusements. A SIP for a credit union at Woodland and Century went to the Joint Plan Commission. And then there were 3 ordinance changes, which are later up on this agenda.
All right, thank you. Joint Plan Commission.
Joint Plan approved the SIP for the Landmark Credit Union.
All right, thank you. We've got Police Commission. Is it Police Commission or Police Committee? Commission?
We have 8 candidates for an open police officer position.
All right, thank you. Community Development Authority, we met and we approved an application for the Waunakee Housing Betterment Fund. And we began discussions on a down payment assistance program that we're hoping to roll out later this year. That's very exciting. Next up then, other boards, committees, or commissions or other announcements. Do we have anything else? No? Go ahead,
And on
Todd.
behalf of staff, I do want to echo your opening comments about
Mhm.
Sam Gitzloff. Brittany is a beloved member of the village's team, member of the library team. If anything to say that's encouraging is how I've seen the village team wrap our arms figuratively and literally around Brittany and her family. And I hope that the way we treat her is an example of how we treat all other employees, but I'm really thankful for the village team, all the departments, especially the library staff who've come to Brittany's side and her family during the tragedy with Sam. So our thoughts will remain with her and her family for a very long time.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. Thank you, Todd. All right, next up then is public hearing. So our first public hearing is discuss and take action on the 2-lot certified survey map at 306 Moravian Valley Road. Is that you, Lauren?
Yep.
All right.
Just quickly share. All right, so this is a 2-lot CSM, pretty straightforward. This is proposed, the applicant is proposing to split this parcel into 2 lots. The southern lot, as mentioned earlier, they're hoping to develop a new 13,200 square foot warehouse building. Here is the CSM, pretty straightforward. One note, we are working with them on some separate easement documents that need to go along with the CSM. So I do have the recommended motion here, which would be to approve the CSM subject to execution of separate easement documents acceptable to the village attorney, which we're reviewing right now.
All right, thank you. So any questions before we open the public hearing? No. Let's open the public hearing at 6:09. Do we have anybody here or online that would like to speak on this item? All right, I see no hands up in the audience. We do not see any hands raised online, correct? All right, so let's close the public hearing at 6:09. All right, so with that, what questions do we have? Any? None? Do we have a motion?
It was approved unanimously at Plan Commission. Move to approve CSM subject to execution of separate easement documents acceptable to the village attorney.
Second. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next item then is public hearing and discuss and take action on an ordinance updating and replacing Chapter 113 floodplain zoning. Back to you, Lauren.
Yep, and I am actually going to turn this over to Tim Semen once I share my screen here. Tim Semen, our planner, is online here to walk you through all three of these next ordinance amendments.
Good evening, trustees. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Excellent, thanks. So, Chair or President Runge, you mentioned agenda item number 2, but I think for this particular item and the next 2, I'm going to wrap them together because I think they're, as you'll see in just a minute, they are all interrelated, but they're separate ordinances. So I guess I would ask that when the time comes, the public hearing, you could open that for all 3 at the same time, but that's obviously your call. But I'm going to talk about all 3 of them together. So what we're going to be talking about this evening, there's an ordinance updating and replacing Chapter 13, which is a floodplain zoning ordinance for the village. Currently, Chapter 125 contains both the shoreland and the shoreland wetland zoning ordinance for the village. We're proposing to break those into 2 standards. One would be the shoreland wetland, and then the other is just the shoreland zoning ordinance. So three distinct chapters, but again, related, as you'll see in a moment. So why are we doing these? And one of the things I think that seems pretty intuitive is it's appropriate for communities to periodically evaluate their regulations against changes to case law, federal and state law, local preferences and practices. It's been a while since the village has updated these. Specifically, the bulk of the shoreland wetland ordinance was last updated in 2008. The shoreland ordinance itself, 2014, and then the last change to the floodplain ordinance was 2016. So it's been quite some time. Specifically for the floodplain ordinance, one of the main reasons to update that document or that regulation is to ensure that local regulations reflect current flood hazards and, importantly, to maintain eligibility for federally backed flood insurance and certain forms of disaster assistance. So it's important for the village to do this for flood insurance purposes. And then lastly, and I mentioned this, these 3 topic areas, the floodplain, shoreline, and shoreland wetland, are all interrelated. Lauren, if you could go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is an example from the floodplain ordinance. And what I can tell you regarding that, there are no, what I would say, substantive changes to the flood maps themselves. So the floodplain boundaries have not changed. The floodplain maps that were adopted back in 2005 and 2009, as shown on your screen here, are essentially the same. What did change, though, is across Dane County, an FIS or a flood insurance study was done and adopted at the county level. That took place in 2025. We actually started working with the DNR staff on this ordinance back in 2025, but when we started looking at the regulations, we thought, let's do all these together. Kristen Rankin, who is the floodplain and zoning specialist or shoreline zoning specialist for DNR, was instrumental in helping us on all 3 of these and provided the model ordinances. But so the primary item of I'll say relevance, if you will, that's not totally the right word I'm looking for, I guess, but is that flood insurance study is the thing that changed. And so that is one of the new items. And then next slide, please. So rather than just look at a whole bunch of text, what you're seeing on the screen is an example, and this comes from FEMA. From their website, and anyone can enter an address and look up these and generate these maps. But what you're seeing on the maps, and it might be a little difficult to see, but both on the right, to the right and the left of the red pin in the middle of the screen are those map references. And so again, those are the FEMA, what are called the FIRM, F-I-R-M, flood insurance rate maps. Those are not changing, just the flood insurance study. But I thought it may be interesting to get a visual representation of what a flood map might look like. Just for your information, that hatched pattern, that sort of blue and red hatch pattern, is called the floodway The lighter blue outside of that is the flood fringe, and those two areas are part of the what people sometimes call the 100-year floodplain or the 1% chance floodplain. Those areas in orange are generally referred to as the 500-year or 2% or 0.2% chance floodplain. So anyway, just wanted to give you that visual to help put some geography to the text in the ordinance changes. Next slide, please. This slide comes from, the source is from Dane County DCI map, and this shows in varying shades of purple the shoreland district relative to the 6 Mile Creek, which is 300 feet from the river. In addition, the 1% chance annual flood that I mentioned, and then in addition, there is the wetland district, which are germane to wetlands within that 300-foot area that are greater than 2 acres. So again, a lot of these things are interrelated, but this is just another visual of an example of where you'd see these things meaning the shoreland, wetland, the shoreland, and the floodplain. Again, this is all public. This is again from DCI maps, so people can look this up at their leisure. Next slide. So as I mentioned, some of the other changes in terms of interrelatability, the DNR has a relatively new tool for showing mapped wetlands, and that's called a surface water data viewer. That's highlighted on the screen right now and then noted by those pagination references on the right side of the screen. But that is another tool that's available to the public, but it is somewhat, not totally, somewhat the authority in terms of identifying where mapped wetlands are. Something else that's interesting about this tool is it includes something called wetland indicators, and oftentimes the property that is in the process of being developed will have those wetland indicators, and that triggers something that will need some type of further evaluation, which may lead to the delineation of a wetland. So again, another tool, that language, that reference to the surface water data viewer is changed in all 3 ordinances. Next slide. And then this is just an example of that tool, what that tool looks like. It's on the DNR's webpage, but again, very, very helpful tool. It's got a lot of robust data and information on there for you to look at. You can zoom in very closely to parcel level data for some of the information. So that's it in a nutshell. I guess I would be available for questions. I would say again, since these are 3 separate ordinances, I would recommend you make separate motions for them. But in terms of the public hearing, I think it would be okay. I guess Brian, that's Brian's call perhaps, whether one public hearing would be sufficient to address all 3 ordinances. But again, changes are for the floodplain ordinance, the shoreland zoning ordinance, and the shoreland wetland ordinance. And am available for questions and
All right.
speaking lessons.
Thank you, Tim. And I got a head shake from Brian. We do need to have 3 separate public hearings, so we'll consider them individually. A little bit more time consuming, but proper according to the rules.
Yeah, and in part because that's the way it's listed on the agenda.
Okay.
I think that's the way we should follow it. I think, and there's no right or wrong answer here. Had we put on the agenda all of these ordinances under one public hearing, I think that would have been fine too.
All right.
But it's simply because it's the way the agenda is stated.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you very much, Tim, for explaining everything. All right, let's open the public hearing for number 2, public hearing and discuss and take action on an ordinance updating and replacing chapter 113 floodplain zoning. Let's open that at 6:19. Do we have anybody here that would like to speak on that? Do we have anyone online who would like to speak on that? If you're online and would like to speak, raise your hand and we will bring you into the meeting. All right, last call. We'll close the public hearing on item number 2 at 6:19 p.m. And so with that, what questions do we have, trustees? Go ahead, Nyla.
I have kind of a general question with all these, the few changes that have been made pertaining to insurance. How does a property owner realize, other than getting on this map, that there have been changes. You know, and how it affects them.
I can take that if you want. So I would say this public hearing is a good avenue for that. But in terms of changes to insurance, there aren't really, that I am aware of, changes to insurance per se. It's just that a community who participates in the flood insurance program has to adopt these flood maps and flood studies so that people who are people who have structures in the floodplain and are taking out federally backed mortgages require flood insurance. And to be eligible for flood insurance, you need to adopt these updated and current maps and studies. But in terms of, again, the floodplain boundaries aren't changing. And as far as I know, I mean, you'd have to talk to your insurance provider about whatever changes there may be. But in order to the village itself, there aren't any that I'm aware of.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion? Anyone? All right, I move to approve the updated ordinance for Chapter 113 floodplain zoning. Is that sufficient as a motion? All right.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Let's open up the next public hearing. Public hearing and discuss and take action on the ordinance updating and replacing Chapter 125, shoreland wetland zoning. Do we have anybody in the room that would like to speak on this issue? Do we have anyone online who would like to speak on this issue? If you're online and would like to speak, please raise your hand and we'll bring you into the meeting. All right, let's close the public hearing at 6:22 p.m. We also opened it at 6:22 p.m. I forgot to announce that. And any questions on this item from trustees? None? Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion on the ordinance updating and replacing Chapter 125 shoreline wetland zoning.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And let's open up our last public hearing of the night. Public hearing and discuss and take action on an ordinance creating Chapter 126 shoreland zoning. Let's open that public hearing at 6:22 p.m. Do we have anyone here who would like to speak on that? Anyone online who would like to speak on this issue?
Tim has
Tim
his
raised
hand.
his hand.
Yeah.
All right.
Very quickly, this is non-technical, but I want to make sure and give Ian Lane, who is our legal counsel, credit. He was helping us on all three of these ordinances. So I just want to make sure he gets the shout out.
All right. Thank you for that. All right. Let's close the public hearing at 6:23 p.m. Do we have a motion? Well, first, do we have any questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll move to create Chapter 126 shoreline zoning of the Code of Ordinances.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here tonight, Tim, and for explaining everything. So let's move on to business item number 1, discuss and take action on ordinance amending Chapter 70, traffic and vehicles to create Article 7, bicycles, e-bikes, electric scooters, and skateboards. And Adam, I believe this is to you and possibly Jack.
And Austin.
And Austin. All right.
HDMI. Where's the HDMI? Oh, I just share it, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Bill's is too.
Is it? All right. But not you,
Although I think I
Caitlin.
bet Nathan-
Yeah, so Lauren, myself, and Chief Kreitzman prepared this presentation to go over all the different scattered pieces of what's occurred with this ordinance since it was last brought to the board back in March. So I'll have Chief Kreitzman open and then I'll interject in the middle to walk you guys through what changed and then he'll close things out. So I'll hand it over.
Yeah, just a little bit of a review. We started to see an increase in e-bikes and e-scooters in like mid 2024, 25 saw that increase even more so, and some challenges that were associated with that. And at that time, the board had a conversation about assigning the police committee to create an ordinance or amend an ordinance with some ways to help make things safer. The police committee met, put together a draft ordinance that came before you in March earlier this year. There was discussion at the board level and then ultimately sent back to the police committee. So we've had three meetings since that time. While that's all been going on, there's been a great deal of education that's been going on as well. I know we've touched on it in some of our meetings as well, but working with the school district and bike safety events, literature that's going out to the schools email list, the Parks and Recreation email list, contacts through the police department. There's been a lot of talk about this every summer. So, we had some of this part of going out to this was then getting some legal feedback as well. We do have an attorney on the call as well to answer some questions along the way. And then also reached out to the school to get some feedback from them about what they're seeing. Obviously, this has been mainly a kid problem, not that they're the only ones. So Austin can kind of share some of the details.
All right. All right. So this slide kind of goes through the stuff that has been retained since the March meeting, a lot of the stuff that was more generally agreed upon at that time. It also calls out the specific sections of the ordinance that these apply to. So things like sidewalk riding etiquette, roadway riding best practices, prohibiting clinging to other vehicles, towing, and other improper means of operation. Parking requirements, so you don't block the ingress and egress to businesses. Safety equipment, so all the lights and things on the vehicles to make them safe, and then retaining the rule of no skateboards in the business district that's in the current version of the ordinance. Since that version, since it's gone through several iterations with the police committee, we've also introduced these key items here summarized in this list. So the first one, kind of going in order, is the tiered penalties for repeat violations in a year. And that kind of outlines, if I remember correctly, right. For the first offense in 1 year, a forfeiture of $25, and then $50 for the second offense, $100 for third and subsequent offenses in the same year. So a tiered penalty system, whereas currently I believe it's just 25 flat for plus court costs. The second one would be a rule of only 12 and under being allowed on sidewalks within the village. And those individuals that are allowed to ride on the sidewalks have to have the power unit turned off. And furthermore, these would not be allowed on Main Street sidewalks where anyone would have to dismount and walk their bike. Another item has to do with e-motos, which became more prevalent as we were going through the ordinance. So we wanted to include something that speaks to those and kind of clarify that state law specifies that these are not technically allowed to be ridden in the village unless you are licensed or permitted and at least 16 years old. Another provision that prohibits the throttle-only propulsion e-bike speed modification, so that you're not technically allowed to modify the bike to go greater than the speed that it was designed for. Prohibiting headphone usage for persons under the age of 16. Requiring helmet usage for persons age 18 and under. And then lastly, encouraging use of off-road or non-sidewalk paths, otherwise referred to as bicycle ways where applicable. So based on that, like Chief Kreitzman said, we also have our legal counsel online if you guys have any questions about the legal aspects and those things that we talked through over the course of working through this. But they did want to bring to your attention 3 items in particular that you guys might want to be aware of as you're reviewing this. So the first one being that our ability to exclusively apply certain provisions to only e-bikes was in question. So we ultimately revised this to have it be applicable to bikes in addition to e-bikes and electric scooters. So all across the board, since it was in question as to whether or not we would legally be allowed to say, well, you can only have bikes on the sidewalks if they're not
e-bikes. So we got rid of that distinction in this version of the draft. Second being a question of whether or not we can actually enact age-based restrictions for sidewalk riding. So that provision of only 12 and under, another thing that may or may not pass legal review. And then the final being requiring helmet usage, just kind of generally questioned as to whether that preempts state law as it is determined currently. So I'll hand it back to Chief.
Yeah, so obviously, as I mentioned, we have a lot of educational part of this topic altogether, but especially whatever comes out of this ordinance, even without it, we do have plans in place already. We've sat down with the school district about legitimately getting into every single class. It sounds like it would probably be a gym class from kindergarten through 12th grade. The hope is to do that in the spring of next year before the riding season kind of picks back up. We will continue with our bike safety events, obviously our educational and how we advertise and educate people through social media and those platforms as well. Whatever we come up with today is going to take some time. Those types of changes that you're reading in here don't happen overnight. Signs and getting the education. I would almost expect all of next year to be very educational more than the enforcement part. Just a couple other things that I would share. The school district was a big one. I know that, you guys are going to have a conversation about whether or not, certain age groups should be pushed out into the street. I do know that I've had some conversations with Dr. Brown about that. She shares a similar opinion to mine, and that is that brings another safety concern. And I know that's something that we spent a lot of time talking about at the police committee level. It doesn't mean that we're not concerned about the safety on the sidewalks or anything like that. We're concerned about safety all around, but the vehicle traffic creates a whole nother problem, I think, for these pieces of equipment as well. So happy to answer any questions you guys have for us, or Ian is on here as well from a legal standpoint.
All right. Jack, do you have anything to add before we begin? I know you spoke with Alex Jors about potential state action.
Yeah, actually, this is a statewide issue, and legislators across the state are getting a lot of feedback from their constituents. So one of the things that they're looking at is, and they're currently in the process of putting together some legislation, which they hope to work on, and they are working on it through the remainder of this year, and potentially get it passed early next year when they're in session. I've got follow-up conversations with Alex and a couple other people regarding this. But I want to give a shout out to the community, because as we've worked through this, we've got a lot of feedback from the community. And I think shout out to Austin Chief and his team, because I think they've incorporated a lot of the community feedback into the ordinance as we see it today. Shout out to the school district for stepping up as well to do the community education, because as the chief indicated, there's education that's required behind this, and it's felt that if we can get it into the school district before the biking season next year, everybody, all of the kids would be would at least have an understanding of what's required when they're riding an e-bike. So I think there's been a lot of hours spent on this, and we've tried to incorporate a lot of the community feedback that we've got from this. So I think, at this point, in my mind, it looks like a good ordinance, and what we'll do is continue to follow what's going on at the state level to see how we can potentially modify or enhance our ordinance as we go forward. But education is the big thing. I think another thing too is, Chief has been monitoring, through his systems. And early on, we had 50, complaints about these that he pulled out off the system. And that was probably about 2 or 3 months ago. Since that time, that number has climbed to 25. So I think there's a lot of discussion about this in the community, and hopefully, the community is responding and doing the right things as they pass.
All right, thank you, Jack. And Erin, you also serve on this committee. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think this has been thoroughly worked through, and we've heard a lot of community feedback in support of these being around town, in opposition of them being here at all, and everything in between. I think technology, transportation, like, it's part of our world. We see cities much bigger than ours that have these you can rent. And so we're just finding our little piece of this. I think we'll definitely need to stay on top of it and update this ordinance as we see what's working for our community, what could be better. This isn't, just going to solve all these problems. I think, Chief, you guys have done an amazing job connecting and finding good touch points with the community, and Austin getting to know kind of the unique parts of the village and what we can do where. I'm just really thankful for your work and everyone getting us to this point. I think I have specific feelings on certain things, but since I've been able to be in some of those meetings, I would like to hear more what the board says. But I think we've definitely fine-tuned it to something hopefully very tangibly able to be read, and people can understand what we're trying to get through here. So
Thank you, Erin. So I'll start the questions. Then I've got a couple of questions around the prohibition of anyone over the age of 12 riding on sidewalks. I think that from, when my kids were in school, they rode their bike to school, or where Heritage is now is where the new middle school is. And those are children who I'm going to assume almost exclusively would be required to ride in the street. Do we have any bike paths that lead right up to the middle school? Because you can ride on a bike path, but not a sidewalk, correct?
I don't believe we have a bike path that goes to the middle school or Prairie Elementary
Okay.
as well.
Okay. And the start time for the middle school, because I don't have kids in school anymore, is that the same start time as the high school?
Yes.
Okay, so one of my strong concerns is kids riding in the road, period, but riding in the road with inexperienced drivers. As drop off and pickup is occurring and students are driving themselves to school in their cars, I understand the need to protect pedestrians, but we see dozens of these cases across the Midwest each year where a child is hit on a bicycle, including most recently in McFarland, by somebody in a car, even as they're following all of the rules. And I have a really strong concern over that rule. Has that been discussed, or some of that been discussed with the school district at all?
As far as their feeling is that they would prefer not to have all of these in the roadway during school drop off and pickup.
Okay.
Essentially high traffic times.
Okay. Okay. And I think everyone that worked on this, I know this is a huge process and there's a lot of moving parts here, but I will say before passing it off, I think that's one of my strong concerns with this. And before I would vote for an ordinance, I'd want to see that changed so that we're prioritizing protecting children rather, and pedestrians need to be protected too, but that we're making sure that we're not pushing a kid into a street that doesn't have the skills to ride in the street at a high traffic time. All right. I'll open it up to the floor. Who else has other questions or comments? Nyla?
I just have a couple things. On page, it were the red 7 of 11, under operating on sidewalks, it says e-bikes operated on sidewalks by persons under the age of 13. I'm questioning if that should be 12 instead of 13 because of what it says above that on the, where it says where prohibited. I understand your concern. My kids rode bikes to school too. This is not easy for anyone, but that's why it's so hard, is because yes, children can get hit riding a bike in the road, and at the same time, senior citizens have been killed being hit by bikes. Unfortunately, our infrastructure has not kept up and cannot keep up with all the different types of equipment that's out there. And then with the e-bikes and things, basically the corporations that are making money, you know, they can, they have all these ways to make it difficult to determine whether they're an e-bike or an moped or this is a very complicated subject, but I am not for allowing bikes and e-bikes and scooters on the sidewalk. From what I understand, the state law says that, if I can find it here, the state law says that bicycles are vehicles and must follow rules of the road, and vehicles are prohibited on sidewalks. I don't know if that's correct or not, but that municipalities can make different rulings or ordinances saying something else. Like I said, I will not vote for something that allows everybody and anybody to be on the road with bikes or e-bikes. If we could differentiate between e-bikes and bikes, I'd feel differently, but we've been told we can't do that. So if we change it so that bicycles are allowed on sidewalks, there's potential harm to many, many people who are walking dogs, who are out walking for exercise. And some of these people are elderly, and I'm a person that can't hear if someone's saying passing on your left or on your right. So that's where I am.
All right. Other comments?
I agree with Kristen on school time. Just make it like during school time when school is opening and then when school after school, because the traffic is going to be tremendous with the middle school and the high school, the new middle school and high school. And I live on like near that area. And it's more dangerous for those kids. There's not very many elderly walking at that time during the school period.
Thank you, Teresa. Anyone else? Chris?
Sure.
Yeah.
I could be a while, sorry. Let me turn this on first. So with the education component, can you describe what that's going to look like for our staff to take care of that with the school district with that many kids?
Yeah, that would be assigned to our school resource officers. So obviously we have two of them now, one at the high school, one at the middle school. They would divide it up and block off whatever time they need for as many classes to be able to do that, and then tailor the educational component from a kindergarten level all the way up through the high school when people start driving, because I think the other part of this is young drivers realizing that they need to look for these types of things on top of everything else that they're learning about operating a car. So that specific component would probably fall into their lap.
So you just brought up that, operating a car, which is 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever had anything that we eliminated kids from riding bicycles. So there's always going to be potential for bicycles, in traffic. And that education comes from both school and parents, I believe. So one of the things I'd like to see is if there can be something similar to the athletic code where it goes through and the parents actually sign off saying they understand what the rules of this are as well, that you could keep on file. Because if something's not, that's putting the parent dead in with the whole game, as opposed to we have this and most people aren't going to know about it. So we do it for our athletic codes. We do it for many things that the parents sign off on at school. If this could be something that we could do that with, and Brian, you might have something to say about that from a legal standpoint.
We did actually look into that.
So Ian's the one who's been helping the village on this issue. So
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he knows.
We did actually look into that at one point in one of the meetings, the ability to hold a parent accountable for some of the violations. There is a state statute that applies in areas of reckless driving if it meets that criteria, although that's a pretty high threshold. And the feedback I believe we got at that time that they didn't think we'd be able to cite parents in that circumstance, or there could be legal challenges with that. So I think that was.
Which is what I'm getting at with if they're signing something saying that they're taking that responsibility, that their parents been, that the child's been educated and they're on board with it. I think that takes that away and puts the responsibility then on them to make sure that their children are abiding by the rules. Because I don't think you're going to have the time, or your staff is going to have the time to fully enforce this all over the place. And you're going to have complaints from residents that want certain things done the way they're not being done. So I just think that's an important component. If I'm wrong, Ian can maybe address that.
So yeah, I think the concern with that is, and we looked into parental liability under this quite significantly. So just kind of as a backdrop here, when we're talking of a lot of these, components of this ordinance, the one thing we want to avoid is being preempted by state law. And so, the realm that we're working in with this particular ordinance, it's the state vehicle code, which is chapters 340 to 349 of the state statutes. And there's case law that says, the vehicle code is a matter of statewide concern and application. So what that really means for our purposes here is the village is only it only has the authority to enact ordinances or regulations that are expressly authorized by the state vehicle code. So, unless there's some express grant of authority to the village to do something, generally they're preempted by state law and they can't really go against it. So where this ties into parental liability is and I don't have the particular statute off the top of my head, but the state legislature in the vehicle code has authorized parental liability under a very, limited circumstances. And I think one, as Chief mentioned, was like reckless driving. So, from the legal standpoint, if the legislature has only authorized parental liability for a couple of things, generally speaking, that means that the village can't go above and beyond that and expand parental liability to everything under the ordinance, for example.
So if I'm 11 years old and I'm going 17 miles per hour on the sidewalk, who gets ticketed?
Well, the village does not have jurisdiction to issue citations to children under the age of 12. So
Which is where I'm going to my point.
Yeah.
The parents would be the ones that would be responsible for that.
The parents, or technically, I guess, the juvenile justice system through the county.
Okay. I have pretty strong feelings about that one, and whatever we can do to tighten that, I would want that in there. Has there been any coordination with Westport, Windsor, Springfield, Middleton, DeForest, and Vienna? Because those are all areas that the kids can get to pretty rapidly with these bicycles and e-bikes.
Yeah,
with their policies.
I will say that I have had a couple conversations with Westport. I think they're kind of waiting to see what we put out first, but they're paying attention to what we're doing. I have not talked to the other communities.
Because I think this goes to the heart of what this issue is. If I'm a child and I'm going outside of this, I'm 14 years old, I want to go over to my friend in Westport and I cross the border and all of a sudden my rules are different. Why don't we have, there's not consistency right now. And I'm not sure why the state isn't stepping in for that. So I'm glad to hear Jack say that Alex George was going to look into that.
Well, Chris, if I can just interject there quick. The state is looking into it, and the state right now, from what I understand, is working with the Bicycle Federation to come up with some rules and regulations on this. And I'm sorry if I jumped over.
No, you didn't jump over. You said it. That's why I'm pointing it out. So it's all good.
Yep.
Then we have all across the state, this is going down. I was in the Fox Valley this weekend. There's other issues going on there. Obviously, people know about that. There was a big tornado, a lot of damage, everything. And this is still an issue that's on the forefront outside of those things. So they're dealing with something that's pretty catastrophic and this topic. So it's obviously a big topic across the state. And, I'm hoping we can be at the forefront that we come up with a really good policy. I think right now it's okay. I think it could be much sharper and much better. But we need to start somewhere. State Journal, August 5th, e-bike scooter emergency visit rates increased from January 23 to January 26 from 9.3 per 10,000 emergency visits to 71.7 for kids. So in 3 years, just that shows that this is an issue and it's going to get bigger. And we need to make sure that we're doing the right thing with this. By the way, adults went up from 14.4 to 44.4, 44.8. So according to this, so it's not just kids, it's adults too, with the injuries that are taking place. And I think a lot of this is just due to a lack of education. When I was a kid, the police came and educated us on bicycle safety, and we kind of knew the rules of the road, but our parents were also there too. In today's world where you have a lot of two-parent working adults, this gets missed, unfortunately. And this is at a higher rate of speed. Now, high school kids still are going 25 miles an hour on a regular bike. They can do that. So I have concerns all along the board with this. We need to do some action, but I don't want to jump the gun that we're missing some things. And I feel like we're missing some things right now with this. Some of the terminology, I had resident reach out today to me, and reasonable speed versus slow speed. What is a reasonable speed for changing for kids on a sidewalk? Is it 5 miles per hour, 7 miles per hour, 10 miles per hour? What is that that's reasonable?
Yeah,
I don't think any kid should have to ride on the sidewalk, especially if they see somebody that's already on the sidewalk walking, whether it's walking their dog or whatever. I don't think they should be on there with speed. If they want to get off and walk past them, fine, but I don't think they need to come up to them at speed and try to pass. It takes out that pedestrian injury that or pet injury for that matter that could take place. And lastly, this is not just about kids, it's about adults as well. And the injuries that are happening from this aren't minor necessarily. This is minor to death that can happen with this. And that's why I believe we have rules and regulations in for owning, shooting a gun. When can you do that? We have vehicle. When can you get your driver's license? There's so many different. When are you of age to drink alcohol? There's all these that are in here, and we have specific guidelines to them. I think right now we have a week program with this. I just don't know how it's going to get enforced with the way it's written right now. And I know it probably frightens you too, because you guys don't have the time. It's not like we have everybody all across the village at all times. So helmets, I didn't even get to helmets, but I don't like that they're saying that we can get challenged for somebody wearing a helmet. I don't know why they would challenge that. It's a safety thing.
Just to add a little bit of context to the reasonableness that was intentionally done from a standpoint of there are certain areas where it might be more acceptable to ride at one speed than a highly populated area. We're trying to write most of this to be around behavior-based type enforcement versus just so many regulations that people are going to have a hard time to follow. I can ride at this time, but not this time. And I think there's a lot of good things in here that allow us to address behavior-based, which is what the majority of people are talking about when they are frustrated. And that is, the behavior of not operating properly when they go past somebody, riding in the middle of the road, doing X, Y, and Z. Those are all behavior-based problems and that I think you can address with the majority of this. So some of those types of things that you're talking about are meant to be vague, probably because, an officer isn't going to be able to sit there with a radar gun and clock a bicyclist going down at this speed versus that speed. That's where some of the challenges are. So trying to find a way to take into reason everything going on around you and have some discretion based on the circumstances.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I've been watching when I go in my travels very carefully what policies are. And most of the communities that I've noticed, we don't allow these bikes into downtown. They're not allowed to be there, period. So that's something else we could consider on our main street, which is our busiest street, obviously. And since we don't have we don't have a lot of sidewalk space in there.
That part's in there.
That's the one. Yeah, I saw that. I was trying to look at Cedarburg because we've had them as kind of a partner community, and that was a big thing that they were focused on, was that downtown area.
All right. Others? Sam?
Sort of continue off of Chris's comments a bit. I do think that the ordinance could be a bit more clear, because you see Main Street, it says you can't ride a bike on the main street, but may dismount and walk the bicycle, e-bike, or electric scooter on the sidewalk. I think that should say that under the no person over the age of 12 may operate on a public sidewalk, just so it's consistent with the language. I'm personally in favor of getting them off the sidewalk. I also would say even during school time, as somebody who rode a bike to school for many years, you also have an awful lot of seniors in this village who are walking to 8 o'clock mass at St. John's on the sidewalk. An awful lot. Aaron remembers that when we would cross the street with Ernie Labar back in the day, and he would yell at us, you need to go in the road if you're going to ride your bike. Do not go around those people on the sidewalk. So, at least for me, I really don't want them on the sidewalks.
So I'm just trying to imagine how that would look. We've got sidewalk with pedestrians around the school. Cars parked, in the road. And then kids are going to ride in between the parked cars, traffic going in both direction. Teenage drivers turning in and out. And then I predict what's going to happen is you're going to have a kid that's on a bike that's 13, that's going to make a left-hand turn and is going to get smacked by somebody. I think we can bet on that. That is really likely to happen if we say these kids who are thinking they're following the rules and they're actually in greater danger. I'm really uncomfortable with it and the school's uncomfortable with it. And I think we just got to talk a little bit more about what do we want this to look like if we want kids walking or biking to school, and we don't have bike paths in that area. How do we privilege the kids' safety during that time as they're getting to school? Yeah, go ahead.
Just thought, school zones,
Mm-hmm.
they're walking their bike. They get to the school zone, they walk it. They don't ride at that point. So they can ride all across the town. Once they get to a school zone, they got to walk through it. Is that possible?
Will they do it?
Yeah, I think that's
But if that's part of the training, is what I'm getting at.
I mean, the training is only going to take you so far.
Yeah.
You have to remember that, just like any other traffic violation and or motor vehicle violation, whatever it might be. There are other areas that are outside of school zones that would have my concern. I think kind of going to the point that Kristen had of vehicles parked down both sides and lots of traffic. And, again, I'm not downplaying any of the concerns regarding sidewalks and things like that. I'm trying to avoid the most serious possibility of an accident, and while still trying to get kids educated, people that are riding them educated, parents educated and willing to have tough discussions with their kids and follow up with their kids about how they're riding. And that is, in my opinion, the biggest challenge.
I think go onto the DOT website and look up bicycle fatalities, drive around Madison and look at the white bikes on the side of the road, right? And then try to look up the statistics for pedestrian fatalities as a result of getting hit by a bicycle. And on the DOT website, it says it's so rare that they don't track it. Not that it doesn't happen, not that people aren't injured, but this is just a really strong concern I have. Jack, I see your hand up. I've said my piece already. So Jack, your hand is up.
Well, I think one of the things you got to do is, we've had a lot of public comments on this, and there's been a lot of public interaction with this. And I think what we're doing is we're trying to balance, safety and our public comments. And I think the other thing, that is interesting to me is we can start monitoring these interactions with police and e-bikes in our new system. And I think there's been a lot of conversation around this, and people seem to be getting the message that something's got to happen, because as I indicated earlier, talking with the chief, the number of interactions per month seem to be going down. And I think what we should do is really pass this ordinance and monitor it, come back in the spring of the year. Because I think what you want to do is have the data, have the data. It gives us the time to do that. And I like Chris's idea of school zones. If you're in the school zone, then get off the bike and walk it to schools. And that solves, I think, some of your challenges regarding, safety around the schools with drop-offs and things like that.
I feel so strongly that we should not pass this as is. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't have an ordinance at some point in time, but I think if you vote for this and it passes, and we have a kid who dies as a result of this fall, you get to be the first one in line at the funeral and explain to the parents that you voted for this. I feel that strongly, but it is not, the school doesn't want this the way it is. I don't think we're doing the thing that's in the best interest of our residents. Doesn't mean that we won't pass something, but I think we got to work on that age limit on sidewalks. We got to talk more about that. That's my piece. And
No,
I'll take the slings and arrows for it, so.
I just want to question,
Mhm.
the question about I have a question about the identification and the, let's see, where is the registration identification? What type of identification would be on the e-bike or bike or whatever? And where would it be? Where would it go?
Stickers typically on the neck underneath the seat for identification. If it's lost or stolen, easy enough to identify.
Okay,
Yeah.
the reason I ask is because I'm familiar with what the DNR does with ATVs and UTVs. And what they do, when you register one of those, they send you a number that's a sticker that you put someplace on your vehicle. But then they also say you have to make a little thing with the registration number on it, and you can make it yourself and put it on there that's more visible than a sticker could probably be, depending on, because, you can't, a sticker, I don't know how they're gonna put a sticker on where it'll be in the back of their seat necessarily. So anyway, I was just going to say that we wouldn't have to go to the expense of making them or having them made to hang and be like a little license plate. But it would be more identifiable, I think, than a sticker. And if somebody wanted to get creative in town and have a little business making these things, I mean, there's nothing to making them. I just wanted to give that suggestion.
Okay. Others?
Yeah, I think the safety concerns are the common thread here for everyone. No one in this room or in our community, or hopefully ever, wants a children to be hit and hurt, or an adult, anyone of any age. I am so thankful to have grown up in a family where I learned how to bike pretty early, and biking was a huge part of my childhood, still a huge part of my life. And technically, if everyone is flowing as they should, right, the street is probably the safest spot for a bicyclist. Now, you don't get that just as soon as you start biking. That's also hoping that our streets are built with bike safety in mind. I think that's something as we continue to go forward in every iteration of this board, like when you go to more urban places where there are more people using more devices and ways to get around, we see protected bike lanes. We see all these sorts of things that, we don't even really go for when we're looking at designing our infrastructure. So I think I just challenge us to continue to stay on the forefront that we want to be on with pedestrian safety. And I'm really, truly torn. And I've probably been all over the place in these meetings and led you guys all over. I don't know that there's a right age for us to say this is when in Waunakee it's comfortable for you to be on and off the sidewalk. I think that's going to be a family decision. It's going to be on the user. And at the same time, I want us to be having a high standard of safety and setting that. That's our job. And I think I really appreciate what you said, Adam. We really find this down to behavior based. And I think I don't want to also put the police department or the village or, people in this situation where we're having, like, how terrible to be having people then out there attacking all these children verbally or on a Facebook group for trying to get around town. And, they're still figuring out how to use these devices. So I definitely don't think we're ready to pass this tonight, but I think if we can get to a more like, what is the standard we want to be setting? We're not going to be able to, get every block satisfied. I grew up on Main Street and we had an alley and it never ever really, we weren't learning to ride on Main Street. It's also, I'm a 10-year-old not going to walk my bike 6 blocks just to get to my house on the street I live on. That's absurd. And that's, you would think that a police officer would say that's safe. That's safer, right? That's why we allow children on the sidewalk right now, because you're technically no one's supposed to be on there unless you're walking or with an assisted device. But we say that's safer. That's what our community wants. We want these people protected. So I think we can continue that. Great, but I don't think we're ready for that. But I think we just need a bit more like tangible things. I don't think we can have the parents sign off on when or not, someone can be using this. Someone comes into town, we don't want to be unwelcoming either. We want people to be able to come here and recreate as safe as possible. So I just want us to continue, I think, problem solving. This definitely was a little early to bring it back to the board, but I think that's why, because we were having these same conversations over and over at police, and that wasn't, this body wasn't there anymore. So I don't know. I could talk about transportation for a long time, but
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I was a childcare provider for 46 years and I had 4 sons. I have 9 grandchildren, and I can tell you one thing, just watching the young couple from up the street, they are teaching their 2 young children how to ride a bike, training wheels. They're doing it right. They're doing a great job. I went out and talked to them and said, hey, you're doing a great job. My point is, Aaron kind of said it. Nobody's going to put a child who has just started riding a bike on the street. As parents, we have to know what our children are capable of, and they might be able to ride around a couple blocks in the neighborhood, but not ride their bike to school. Though that's something that the parents have to judge and monitor. I agree with Jack. We need to do something to get things started so we can have some data, so we can have some information. And it's not going to be perfect. Nothing's going to be perfect that we do, but we have to try to do something that's going to keep people safer. It's not going to be great, but we have to do something.
Anyone else?
I agree that we should pass something and start it, but I do believe the school system needs to be involved with doing the no bike zones during school period, because they're going to be in the street and they're going to be in danger.
Yeah. Yeah. So
are there parts of this that are a yes for people, like the tiered penalties and some of those other things we've been working through?
I think I'm a yes on most of it, but not the 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds in the street. Not requiring that, because you're going to have a kid who is following the rules and doing what they think a good kid should do. And it's going to be a high schooler who is also thinking they're following the rules and is just an inexperienced driver and doesn't look over their left shoulder or their right shoulder and hit somebody. I mean, it's going to be nobody's fault. It will have not been a parent's fault. Nobody will have been neglectful. It will just be an accident.
So is it more like age or location? I guess, like where?
I think that for the moment, we don't have a handle on that. And when you read Dr. Brown's note in here, I'm like, I think we just need to work on thinking, what does whole community safety really look like? And particularly during those hours of the day, and knowing that if we're passing one blanket rule, we are probably putting some of our residents at risk that they wouldn't be in otherwise. So we're not there yet. Jack's got his hand up. So Jack.
Yeah, I guess, one of the things I hear what you're saying, Chris, and, put him out in the street and, somebody on this board is going to be the first person in line in the funeral. But, one of the things I've been watching these kids ride these bikes, over, and this is anecdotal, but these kids are pretty skilled in riding these bikes. And I guess, what we've got two sides of this. We've got people that want to walk their dogs and walk on the sidewalks, and we get these kids that are riding right up behind you, and you don't. To Nyla's point, you don't hear them. These things are electric vehicles, and it's just like when they came out with the electric cars. The blind people had a challenge walking across the street because they could no longer hear the roar of the engine. So the I think we underestimate our kids. I think our kids are pretty savvy in riding these things.
I don't disagree that the kids are savvy, and I don't disagree that it's an issue, but the physics of it all, kid on bike meets vehicle traveling even at a relatively slow speed, no matter how smart and savvy that kid is and how well they're following the rules, they're not going to win. And we are, by passing this the way it is, we are going to be putting kids at risk because they're going to be in the road at a time of day when there are a lot of cars in an area where there are a lot of cars all going the same place with a lot of inexperienced drivers. I just don't think we're ready. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't do something. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be concerned about pedestrians on foot on sidewalks. But I think we got to think a little bit harder about that element of it. Yeah. So
Adam, I want to pull you in for a second. You always love that when I do that.
I do.
Have you had any comments from your staff about these? Have they've witnessed a lot of issues potentially that they've personally witnessed?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're addressing the ones that they're witnessing. That's been our approach all summer long. We've really made it a focus to have some proactive conversations. We just sent out an officer today for an hour and a half where their only job was to drive around and pay attention to these specific types of violations. They saw 4 or 5 of them and no violations. They were all riding appropriately. So I think that is the hard part a little bit of this. I look at it like whatever you pass, you're trying to get 90 to 95% compliance. You're always going to have a percentage of people that won't follow whatever you put out, no matter how strict. So I think if they're seeing it, they're addressing it, and they're doing what they can to help educate people. Nobody wants to see anybody get hit. I think Kristen, you brought up a really good point, the young drivers and how much, or any driver, right, that hits somebody and everybody's doing something right, or maybe not doing something right, but how much that impacts the driver that did that as well. And that's a whole nother part.
yeah.
So my next question is the ordinance as it sits right now. If we pass this tonight,
Yeah.
you're not going to educate the students until next year.
Correct. You won't
Really,
have
the ordinance is going to do nothing right now, other than some people might be aware. In my opinion, right now, what would make sense is for what I just asked Adam, for them to be watching, seeing what the ordinance looks like and how it will be enforced as we go through the next couple of months that we're still riding bikes. Because we're going to be done here in winter pretty quick. And we'll have that then for the spring, that we can modify it to what makes sense. You'll see what kind of things are happening with the school right now as they're coming in. I'm guessing we should post somebody there every day.
Yep.
At the schools. I don't know if we have enough staff to cover all the different schools. That's a problem. But that'll give us the feedback that we're really needing with how that's going to work. I don't think we can get something. We're not going to be able to train everybody. You're not going to be able to get them at the beginning of the school year. That's what I'm hearing. Even if we pass this, I don't think you'd be in there right away.
No. And I don't think that would be the best use of our time, to be honest with you. By the time they're getting into school and within a month or so, it's starting to cool off. You're starting to see fewer of these. I think the best approach to our time really is the spring. I don't disagree with you that does leave a little bit of time. I would throw out one other suggestion as I'm listening to you guys talk. We could bring back another version at your next meeting that took out the key pieces in which it sounds like there's not a great agreement on, with the ability to look at that. And you guys can always consider adding more of that language later. Doing so would still allow us to address a lot of the behavior-based stuff that is in here, which would give us some groundwork to work off of. So, I know that's not what's before you today. That's not necessarily what the police committee agreed to send to you, but that would also be an opportunity to put something forward while still leaving some leeway to address that next spot if you had to. So just a suggestion.
Like the multiple riders per bike happens down Main Street like every day. I saw 3 tonight. Like that's an easy yes that we're being asked in this too. So I think the sidewalk, not sidewalk is really going to hold us up, but there's so many things that we've been working really hard on.
Yeah.
That's the point I want to make. Yes, the school and the sidewalks is an issue, but that's not the only area of town. We have issues all over town with this. So I feel we need to do something now so people can learn what the ordinance is and we can continue working. But I'm not willing to sit and wait for the state to come up with something or sit and wait for somebody to get hurt and we've done nothing.
Well, we are doing something.
We're looking at it and trying to come up with, but if we don't act, in my opinion, we might as well be sitting on our hands.
So if we come back next month with a modified version, or at our next meeting with a not modified version, we are acting, but we're not acting in a way that between now and a second pass at this, we're requiring kids to be in the road when they maybe shouldn't be in the road. For me, that feels like a safer option to just say, okay, we're not happy. None of us are happy with the situation, but we can live with it for another month and come up with something that doesn't place middle schoolers, and young high schoolers at risk. Jack, your hand.
I make the motion to pass as presented. And if it fails, it goes back to the police committee for further discussion.
I'll second it.
All right, comments on any questions? I mean, I will make my comment. I think it's the safer thing to do for the community in general to wait to pass this until we're not requiring 13 and 14-year-olds to be in the road.
What's the intent of sending it back to the police committee?
To get the, pardon?
To modify it.
Yeah.
But why are we asking them to modify something that they've already sent to us based off of our comments?
Sent to them too.
Yeah, we keep sending it back.
Because we asked the board to review it. That's why we brought it to the board. So if they needed to.
Well, in March 2026, we sent this back to the police committee, but then the police committee said 3 meetings about this. And now we're back here. So I just don't understand why we're sending it back there. If we're ultimately approving it and we think we might be ready to approve something in a month, I just feel like that's a delay and it's overcomplicating it. At this point,
Well, we've got a motion to pass or not
Aaron?
pass.
okay, I'm
Just a second, Jack. We've got a motion to pass or not pass. If we decide not to pass it, then we can just send it back to staff. We don't need to send it back to the police committee. So
I would also say in tandem with the comments you made earlier, we've gotten several letters from the school district, but I think it'd be appropriate to have it one of these meetings, whether it's on Zoom or in person, either somebody from the superintendent's office or a middle or high school building principal.
Yeah.
So we can have more of a back and forth dialogue with them versus.
I think that's a
more
great
playing A game
idea.
of telephone.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. I mean, it's a big red flag for me that they have a concern over this. That's a big red flag. And I don't know that we lose much by waiting till our next meeting and modifying it.
but did he say if this doesn't pass, we're sending it to the police committee?
Hold on.
Now are we waiting a whole nother month?
Go ahead.
So I would say this. The motion has been made and it's been seconded.
Mhm.
If it doesn't pass, you are not bound by the second part of that motion.
Okay. All right.
Can I just make one
Yeah.
thing?
Yes.
I'm actually disturbed tonight because there's 4 residents in the room. And this is a big issue and it's been a hot topic everywhere else,
Mhm.
but there's only 4 residents that aren't staff or board members that are in the room. So that's disappointing to me that there's not more.
Online.
How many online?
5 online.
Oh, there are 5. Sorry. Thank you then. So we have 9 out of our, 17,000 plus.
But at the
people that
police
are here.
committee, we've gotten a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people. at
They've
the
had
meeting.
full
Yeah.
houses
Many,
there.
many.
Yes, filled room.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. But I would think that when it's
Right.
being decided upon, that they would.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the people making this ultimate decision haven't Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know why we're sending it back to the police committee. I don't
Well,
I
understand.
think we
We're
are.
not sending, I don't think.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Jack, your hand's up. One more comment and then we'll call the question.
Just call the question.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
No.
Aye.
All right. Motion fails and we will bring it back with direction to staff.
I feel confused about.
Jax was just delayed. So he had made the motion. Nyla had seconded. When Kristen asked for the yes votes, Jack and Nyla said, yeah, is what I heard. The no votes were the other 5.
Yeah.
Now it's totally
Is
up
that
to
correct? To the village board?
Jack, did you vote for or against?
4.
Okay. And then 2 to 5. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you all for taking me seriously. I do prioritize safety of all residents, but I don't think we got this there yet.
So where are we?
We're going to
staff
send
and
it
not
to
the
staff. Yeah. So, and not to the police committee.
Then
So
why is there a police committee?
Are we gonna,
Wait, so wait,
go ahead.
what was the question about?
If it's going back to staff or police committee,
That's up to you. That's up to you all as to what you want to do.
yeah, so what, like, are we more on an age thing or location thing? I feel like,
yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Yeah.
so at what age are you comfortable with someone riding on the street?
I am comfortable with me personally, if a 13-year-old is riding in the street and it's okay with their parents and they're a good rider, not an issue at all.
So
If we're forcing them to
Yeah.
be in the street,
that, and that's
you know,
where I feel
that's
confused.
where I'm like, that's for me, that's an issue. That's a risk.
So is our path forward like not including the age or?
I think
Putting
our-
it in, is it, we put in the ordinance, it, you know,
I think
until
our
they're appropriately ready?
path for what would work, Adam? What's the safest in your opinion?
I don't know, sorry.
I
I
just-
just-
that, we would have been,
Yeah.
would have had a good one in March.
I
I don't, I think the age thing just gets a little challenging. To your point, what you're saying, Kristen, is really kind of a parenting decision that probably shouldn't be interpreted by law enforcement or,
Yeah.
because we don't know. But I mean, I think that would be the big discussion for you guys if there's a direction right now. Otherwise, I would bring back a version that didn't have that in it right now to allow some additional time to put some thought into that, but would still, like I said, allow us to address some of the things in here that I think could help address some of the behavior-based stuff.
can I make,
Yeah.
Adam, could you, during this time frame where we're putting this together from staff, can you please put a focus with your staff on watching what's happening? Where the areas are, because school's gonna start between now and our thing. So we can that can help to form our decision with this.
Yeah, we're going off the summertime where school's not in session, so I mean, I think that changes a little bit. I also would say that if you were looking at our busiest times a day, call volume wise, a lot of times that's in the morning when there's a lot of traffic and in the afternoon going into the evening. So as much as we want to be in the school area and we really do prioritize that, we're call based. So,
I would just make a recommendation that it be
Yeah.
where the high school and new school are, because that's new.
Yep.
We don't know what that's gonna look like yet.
I would agree.
So the other schools, we've already kind of got, it's normalcy, so to speak.
Yeah.
So those would be a priority for me.
All right.
My only issue is why is the staff making the decision and not police committee? Because we've been working with the
Well,
citizens.
they're not making a decision.
No.
They're rewriting
They're
it.
making
Yeah.
Right, they're making recommendations. They're
Okay.
making adjustments to what's in
Yeah.
here.
It's
Police
typically-
committee's it's already been sent to them twice already from this board. And they've had at least 5 meetings discussing this. Now we're just making some tweaks here based on what
Yeah.
they have discussed.
I guess I'm just confused on what the tweaks are. Like, I feel like we're
Well,
still
it's
not all on the same
basically
page of what
removing
we're asking them to bring back.
portion
but-
about the
but-
sidewalk,
that might be
basically
me.
the controversial portion.
Yeah, so that's what I'm confused. Are we asking them to, because we just had a vote for this with the sidewalks, like, are we asking them not to have sidewalks or have sidewalks at a certain age?
Yeah. Good question.
What are we asking them?
I
Yeah.
think the direction to staff, from what I've heard, is essentially try to bring back an ordinance that is going to take out what seem to be the most controversial aspects of this. So something can get on the book so you can start monitoring it, knowing that in all likelihood, probably in December or January, you're going to be updating it with some of the more controversial items when you have more information to be able to make those decisions.
Thank you, Brian. for summarizing. Appreciated. All right, are we ready to move on to the next item? Okay, good discussion. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Austin. All right. Next up is item 3, discuss and take action on ordinance deleting section 26 dash.
No, heyday.
Oh, Heyday. Thank you. No, I crossed it out. Discuss and take action on a final plat for Heyday subdivision at North Madison and Easy Street. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. So just as a reminder, this is a proposed housing subdivision north of Waunakee at North Madison and Easy Street. 114 single-story rental homes, 36 two-story rental townhomes, and 50 single-family lots. Before you today is a final plat. Just a quick rundown of what the plat entails. Lots 1 through 50 are the single-family lots. Lot 51 is that larger lot towards the north that includes all of the rental units. There are several outlots. Outlot 1 is for stormwater. 2 is the sanitary lift station. Outlot 3 is the public park, 0.59 acre public park. Those will all be dedicated to the village. Outlot 4 is a very small outlot for cluster mailboxes. That's dedicated to the HOA. And then outlots 5 and 6 are for entrance signage, and that would also be dedicated to the HOA. The plat also includes 3 public roads.
Wait, ladies, I'm sorry. It's difficult for us to hear. Thank you. Go ahead, Lauren.
There will be 3 public roads dedicated to the village, and then easements that run along the private roads for utilities. So here's kind of a screenshot. The plat is in 3 different pages, so it's kind of hard to show the whole thing, but this is the southern portion where the single family lots will be located. So the bottom left is that stormwater area. And then the public park is that kind of small area in the single family lot area, outlot 3. And then this is further north where the rental unit portion will be. And you can see the easements that run along that lot, but those aren't public roads. Those would be private roads. So staff recommend approval of the final plat. We have a recommended motion here to approve the final plat subject to an execution of a development agreement between the village and the developer. And also the street names need to be approved by the county surveyor. So I also included that and approval of street names by county surveyor.
All right. What questions or comments do we have on the final plat? Anyone? Chris?
Can you go back one slide?
Yeah.
So one of the items that was a discussion point is the house that's kind of got a square around it to the left.
Yep.
Blow
that up.
Yep.
One of our requirements was that sidewalk trail go through that property. Are we maintaining that in this, or are we allowing it to go around the property?
Yes, so that was a condition on the approval of the SIP, as well as it'll be something addressed in the development agreement.
Is it, but like, is there right of way shown? This is where my knowledge, lack of knowledge on how to read a plat, but is the right of way, is that the 32 feet or the 33 feet that's right in front of the house? So there is right of way on the plat?
Yes.
Okay.
Right here, but it's a smaller width than what the rest of the plat is. So that's the issue there. There's not enough right of way to allow the path currently. So we've asked the developer to negotiate getting land for that right of way.
Don't they need to amend the plat then? I guess that's my only question, because so the motion that Lauren has covers what you have said before, which is where you want the bike path to run right there. It's something, that's why the development agreement is not here right now. We're working through that issue. I just don't want the developer to believe that they're going to be able to build with the width that's shown right there, because it doesn't look like it's wide enough. So I guess that's my one question of, can we approve the plat right now when it doesn't have the width that is necessary for the road and the bike path? And do we have, is Cody online or? That's my only, I mean.
Okay. Jack, your hand is up.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could make the approval of this plot contingent on getting that path as discussed in previous meetings.
Well, I guess, and I was gonna, if I
Go ahead.
piggyback off that, can we just, or would you just make it, right now it's contingent upon the development agreement being executed and the street names. And maybe could we throw a third condition in there that just the plat be updated to reflect the full width that we're looking for the right of way and the bike path? Because we know that for this to move forward, we're gonna have to get that land swap so that in fact we can get the full width. So maybe just add that, that can still get approved then tonight, but still just add that as a third condition, that the plat be updated, you know, essentially so that when the development agreement comes back to you, because we're able to work through the issue, that will ultimately lead to the plat being modified to show the full width.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
that makes sense. Does anyone have questions on that? Brian Arcan?
Are they?
See, who is Brian with Heyday? Okay, I'm sorry, Brian, I didn't recognize your last name. All right, hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Couldn't this be covered by CSM? I think Strand's staff comment was that a CSM would address any changes to that property line instead of in front of the single family home, and the plat could move forward as is.
Go ahead, Brian.
So I guess what I'm trying, this is Brian Kleinmar, I'm trying to get at essentially the same issue. In other words, the village isn't going to sign this plat until the development agreement gets approved. And the development agreement isn't going to get approved based on what we've heard until we actually get the land swap so that we have the width in the road for the bike path. And so I guess I just don't want anyone to believe that we're going to, this plat's going to have to be updated to show the width of the road. And, you know, and I understand that the bike path doesn't get shown on the road, but it's going to have to be updated for the width before it can get recorded, and that will be consistent with the development agreement. So I would think that that gets at the same issue and just avoids a further CSM, because you all would just be able to update the plat. And you wouldn't have to come back to the board to update the plat, because that would be part of the conditions of approval. So this would be the last time that the plat comes before the board, but before it gets signed and recorded, the width of the road would have to be wider.
Hey, Brian, are you able to hear me?
We can hear you, Josh.
Great, appreciate it. I think, I don't know if it's possible that we could state it this way, but I think there's a couple of different versions of how this could happen. I think, yeah, the CSM, because I don't think we can get that additional width without a CSM, because that house isn't really part of this plat, as I understand it. It's excluded from it. So I think a CSM needs to happen on that parcel in order to get the additional right of way. And then I don't know if we subsequently have to amend this plat based on that, or if the CSM alone is what adjusts the right of way on the parcel that is not part of this. I'm also hoping, and as everyone knows, you know, I'm working really, really hard to try and get all of this figured out, but I'm hopeful that everybody knows what we want here, and if it's possible that staff is given the authority to work with us to satisfy, you know, a general condition that the path be a contiguous path from the north to the south. Because one of the things we're trying to work around is if we can't get the right of way, if I don't control that parcel isn't in the village. If I can't get the right of way done there, is the board telling me your project can't move forward? Or is potentially one of the solutions I've suggested to the village is acceptable as a temporary measure until the village is able to get the additional right of way and that parcel comes into the village? Because I imagine that's what will give the authority, the leverage maybe to the village, is once this tries to come in and be annexed, the village can say the right of way is required in order for this to become part of the village.
Go ahead, Brian.
So
Yeah.
I guess I would say a couple of things. At this point, the board has said that the bike path needs, the road and the bike path need to be in Madison Street, essentially the same way it's going to be north and south of this home that we have right here. Obviously, if circumstances change and it turns out that this isn't going to work, then I think we can reevaluate that, or that would be an option. But right now, that's the board's decision. And so there really isn't another location to be contemplated for the bike path except for where it's going to be to the north and the south of this parcel. And I guess I come back to I'm not sure why a CSM is necessary, because if this is going to proceed, my understanding is that at least that's what's been contemplated at this point is some form of a land swap with the land to the north in this property. And then if that happens, then you all would be able to control it, which means that you would be able to update the final plat with exactly what I was saying without even having to worry about a CSM, because now you would own that land.
Yeah, and Brian, that's what I'm trying to get done, but it's very possible I'm unable to. And
No,
then,
I understand that, Josh. And then I think if we get to that point, then the board's going to have a further discussion as to whether or not it wants to reevaluate the position it's taken that the bike path needs to be there. But I think it's a little early in the day, in my opinion, to worry about that other alternative, because I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to do what it is we've been talking about.
Sure.
And I appreciate that it involves a third party who's not party here right now, but I'm still hopeful.
Yeah. No, trust me, so am I. I think the only thing I would say is let's not say, let's just give this the optionality that a CSM, anything that effectuates the bike path running on the parcel of land that I don't control should satisfy the condition, because a CSM might be something that gets done without me owning that land. And if that ends up being the negotiated settlement, then I don't want to have to come back, because I'll be able to build the path just from a CSM.
So what you're suggesting is the contingency that I had identified was the final plat being updated to reflect the width of the road in front of the parcel, such that the full road and the full bike path can be constructed. And what you're saying is, but at either the final plat gets updated or a CSM is provided that essentially accomplishes the same goal.
Correct. Whatever accomplishes that goal is satisfying the condition.
Since I was the one who offered the condition, I think that would be a fair modification of the condition from what Josh just said.
Okay. All right. Good discussion. Other comments or questions? And Josh, your hand is still up. Did you have more?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm good.
Just making sure I'm paying attention. All right. Other comments or questions? None?
I agree with the CSM. I mean, I think that the third party could be already helping out with making this go through, so.
Okay.
Well, just so that I can,
Yeah.
if it's a CSM, it's going to have to be the other party that does the CSM, just so everyone's clear.
Yeah.
If there's a land swap, then the plat can easily be updated. If there's not a land swap, the party that owns that parcel would have to be the one that would prepare and file the CSM, just so everyone's clear.
So then he has control either way. So then what if the CSM doesn't go through and he doesn't agree with that? So are we going to make a different route for the bike path?
I think that what I would.
So that this whole heyday thing will be gone? That's what I'm saying. We've been in progress and then this happened.
Well, to be clear, what village staff is asking for and what this condition says is consistent with the annexation agreement that was executed in January of this year. So it's not we're not asking for anything new. And the alternative that you just identified, that's what I was trying to get at when Josh made his comment, which is if in fact.
When the annexation happened.
Let him finish, please. Go ahead.
All I was going to say is if that comes to pass so that we're not able to get the width of the road that we want here, then the board has the ability to reevaluate it at that point.
Okay, Teresa, go ahead.
Because when the annexation originally happened and it was another owner, now it's a new owner in the past month.
But that's not relevant to our annexation agreement because neither that other owner or the new owner were parties to that annexation agreement.
All right, other questions or comments?
What should the addition be at the end of the motion to cover that?
So I'd say, so move to approve the final plat subject to execution of a development agreement between the village and the developer, approval of street names by county surveyor, and either a modification to the final plat or a certified survey map that provides the width of the road in front of the parcel in Vienna so that the width is the same as the road to the north and the south of the parcel. In other words, we just want the road to be the same width.
Okay.
Can you write that down or does it count?
Carla's gonna ask me to watch the video.
So,
I was just going to say that, so thank you.
so Chris had a comment, so do you want to hold your comment until Josh? Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, really quickly, the road is able to be built on the current right of way. So this has nothing to do with the road. It's a sufficient right of way to build the bike path from the north to the south through that parcel. The road could be built based on the current right of way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we just need to make sure that the right of way in front of this road is the same width as the width of the right of way to the north and to the south.
Okay.
Well, Brian, again, I don't think that's necessary in order for the pathway to be built, because remember, the only reason this is happening is because that CSM that was done back in 1980, they put the irons in the wrong spot. So if a CSM is done and just puts the irons in the right spot and corrects the mistake of the CSM from 1980, there will be enough room to build the road and the path, but the right of way won't be the same as what I am establishing through my plat.
Yeah, and I think it's been the board's position today. Maybe we want the road to be the same as it runs from Easy Street north all the way to the end of the plat. Whether there's other land in Vienna or not that breaks it up.
Can't you establish that when this is annexed? I mean, but right now, for my project to get done, all I need is the CSM corrected. Once this becomes part of the village, you can require in the annexation any additional right of way that you want.
But we have no idea when that other land might get annexed.
I know, but you're gonna have the path and the road. Like you'll have everything you need right of way.
All right. I feel like we're good information. But Chris, you had a question.
I was just gonna ask Josh. Josh, how long did you work on securing that home there?
I haven't, buying the home? Well, I tried to buy the home for 8 months and I thought I had an agreement to buy it. And then that didn't come to fruition. The homeowner asked us to stop trying to contact him. And then I found out maybe it was right before I think the SIP was approved at P&Z that that parcel was acquired by somebody else. And I've been in touch with that parcel owner. I met with him in person. I called him 3 times this week. I spoke to him today. I'm going to probably meet with him tomorrow. I am doing everything I can to effectuate what it is the village wants here. I'm just trying to figure out the path of least resistance that gets the village what they need today and allows me to build the project.
So there's still several opportunities you have here right now that could work in your favor. So as long as we're good with the language, did you make that motion?
But I think that we should tell them who the third party is. It's Tierney.
No, that's not appropriate. That has nothing to do with the approval or not approval of the plat. This is.
He was working with that guy 8 months and then all of a sudden a month ago, Tierney gets it.
Teresa.
No.
This is not appropriate. This is a decision about this plat for this developer and does it other people's involvement in a property.
One plat and that whole development, and then Tierney has to get that one plat.
Teresa, again, we are evaluating this plat and not another property owner's decision.
I have an issue with it, so.
Okay. But again, not appropriate to this decision. Todd and Lauren, it looked like earlier, I think Todd, you were going to say something or no? Okay, Lauren? No? Okay. I misread the room. All right.
So as hard as this might be, Brian, could you read or say what you want us to?
So, well, actually, Lauren put the, just so, I mean, actually you could put that, yeah, but what I'm getting at is if you notice, we have we have a road width that is south of that parcel, and we have a road width that is north of that parcel. And what I believe the village board expects is that the width of the road will be the same width as it runs from Easy Street north all the way to the edge of the plat. And that is effectively the update that needs to be done either to this plat or via a certified survey map that then would get you where you want to be. And so that's effective. So the motion is what Lauren had up there before, and then adding the condition that the road width on the plat or via a CSM is the same as the width of the road north of the parcel and south of the parcel.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
And really quickly, so like there's not a consideration that that's not necessary for my project to move forward? That I can get something less than that if that's all I'm able to negotiate and the village is still not willing to approve the project if I'm successful in doing partially what is needed?
Go ahead, Frank.
So two things, Josh. One, I don't think that that's what we're saying. We're saying this is what we want. If we don't get it, then we have the ability to reevaluate it based on some of the other proposals that you've made before and some of the other options. So I wouldn't say that it then kills it. But the other thing I would say is I believe that the additional condition that we've just been talking about is consistent with the annexation agreement. The annexation agreement contemplates that we are going to have a width of a road that is consistent as it runs from north to the south of the plat on North Madison Street. And so I think if the board approves this motion, it's consistent with the annexation agreement.
So so this parcel that we're talking about is part of the annexation agreement?
No, but we have an exhibit that's part of the annexation agreement that makes very clear that there will be road improvements made as part of this development on North Madison Street as it runs past this property.
Okay.
Can I ask clarify who made the second?
Kristen
Or
Thank
Aaron? At the same time. Yeah, I'll take
you
it.
can have it. It's
Okay.
your birthday. You can
All
have it.
right. All right. All right. That's a good birthday present. All right. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, you're opposed, Jack?
Yeah.
Okay, motion carries. All right. Next item on the agenda now, we can go to discuss and take action on ordinance deleting section 26-2 and amending section 74-104 private well abandonment. Lots of
Okay,
exciting
yeah.
water-related things today.
This should be an easy one, I think. All right. So this ordinance does two things. The one is it's deleting a redundant section in our ordinance. And two, it's updating the reference to administrative code to align it with the correct reference. For some background, we have a private well ordinance that basically talks about what folks who live in the village who still have private wells need to do. We are looking to, so our Waunakee Utilities does permitting for these wells. They require them to be tested annually and submitted to Waunakee Utilities, and we're hoping to better enforce that and make sure that that's getting submitted. And this was recommended by the DNR to get updated in our ordinance before we start doing that.
Okay. Do you have any questions or comments on this item? Go ahead, Nyla.
How many private wells are there in Waunakee?
We have about 7 of them.
Thank you. Thanks. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, I move to approve the ordinance.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Oh, sorry, Jack, you're just delayed just a second and I keep going on to the next one before you, but you said yay, right?
Yay.
Aye. Okay. All right. Motion passes. Next up, continued discussion on administrator recruitment, and I believe we had a handout for that. So are you
Actually, grab those handouts. Jared's going to swap them. He had an update on some of the data. Yeah, hot or off the press. And then he'll walk you through the discussion.
Okay.
Hand them down.
These ones were burning.
Bowling hands.
Hmm?
Those were bowling hands.
Mine? I was a catcher.
And Jack, Jared has emailed you the latest version of that table.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, good evening. So a couple of updates here on the administrator recruitment. So first and foremost in the packet, you'll see the updated job description based upon the feedback that we went over or that you provided at the last board meeting. So just a couple of changes to that. Wanted to quick review those, see if you had any additional feedback. Because again, with our timeline, what we'll do is I'll be bringing to you basically the final draft of everything that we've gone over at the September, I believe, 8th meeting. So that we can get the recruitment going right after that. So in here, just to highlight the changes we made to the job description, not too much here. We changed the education requirement from a master's degree to a bachelor's degree, but added the note that a master's degree is preferred. And then I changed the wording based upon what I was hearing in the experience level to one of the common phrases that you see in almost every recruitment now is to say progressively responsible municipal management. Basically what that's referring to is basically an upward trajectory in one's career. We struck all the language under salary and benefits because that's just not appropriate to put in a job description. That belongs more in the job advertisement, which again, we'll be going over at the September meeting. And then the other one I added because I noticed it wasn't in here, and you see this on every job description, is that you must possess a valid driver's license for this job. Really, that's the sum of the notes that I had. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Does must possess a valid Wisconsin driver's license? Why Wisconsin?
Yep. So that's, I've asked that question myself. I've always wondered, well, what if you just have a valid out of state license? The assumption is that eventually, if they're working here, eventually you're going to have to become, you're going to be a resident of the state. And at some point you need to have a valid license for the state in which you reside. I mean, theoretically, you could have someone who's commuting from Rockford, Illinois, I guess. That's quite the commute. I don't know if.
Well, the reason I ask is this, how would, if they plan on moving, how would they have this? If they're living in another state?
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. I understand your question. That would not be a requirement to get hired for the job. You would have to get a valid Wisconsin driver's license.
Okay.
That's just the wording that we always see. I could add or ability to obtain within.
That's an interesting thing, though. Women are less likely to apply for jobs they don't meet all the qualifications for.
Exactly. I mean, to me, that I did not understand that. So
we would waive it. No, that's fair. That's like a valid. I definitely saw that and thought the same thing. But then it's like, okay, you just say, it's like, oh, you're finishing your master's. Great. Can't wait to have you. Cool. Sorry. I'm very
So
excited.
does anyone have any additional feedback on the job description? Again, this is separate from the job announcement, which is going to be more advertising the position and the community. This is strictly focused on the key aspects of the job.
That seems
So-
appropriate.
Any feedback on the job description? Oh, all right.
It looks good. I'm just sitting here thinking now, wait, could somebody take an e-bike to get to work instead of driving?
They better walk once they get to Main Street.
Not on the sidewalk.
Question. I know we discussed this before, but the personnel management, I understand overseeing the department heads, et cetera, but it seems to me like human resources has been taking a lot of that over.
So I don't.
You
so
haven't?
I don't oversee any department heads.
No, I'm saying, I understand the department heads be under the administrator.
Right.
But as far as the other employees, you're doing a lot of that, are you not?
No, the department heads supervise the other employees. I facilitate benefits administration, onboarding, recruitments, that sort of thing. I don't.
Okay, so one of the things we have here is oversight recruitment, evaluation, discipline and resolution, the personnel issues and employee grievances.
Yeah, so I think the key word there being oversee. So the administrator is not directly responsible for that. I mean, frankly, the administrator oversees all of our police functions, all of our public works functions, all of our community development functions, but there are department heads who are responsible for those. So
Okay,
ultimately, I'm the one in my role who's responsible for those things, but I report to the administrator. They're accountable to you that I'm doing my job as the HR manager.
okay, as long as everybody knows what they're doing. Thank you.
All right. All right. Any other comments or whatnot on the job description? Thank you for the modifications.
Yep. And again, if you do think of anything else, we're going to be going over it one final time, all of it on September 8th. The other thing that I handed out here tonight is the salary comp, because one of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit today is what we're going to talk about for advertised hiring range. So what we have here is data from a number of different communities. So I broke it out into two different boxes here. So the top box is every municipality in the state for which we could get data that fell in a population from 15,000 to 25,000. And then the bottom box is Dane County municipalities with a chief administrative officer for which that we could get data in this time. So when I say chief administrative officer, I mean the city manager or city administrator. So the numbers here, they're pretty close overall, I would say. There is definitely some variability in terms of years of experience in these positions, as you can see. But generally speaking, I think the numbers paint a pretty good picture. When I first glanced at this, what this tells me that we should be considering for an advertising range would be 160 to 180, potentially a little bit higher if you feel so inclined. But really what these show me, when you look at the means and the medians and you factor in kind of the variability with the years of experience, I think 160 to 180 is a good starting point for that conversation for advertised range. One thing to clarify is the peach boxes, the kind of orange colored boxes you see in here, are ones that we could not get information for. So I'm basing this off of previous data. So data from 2025 that I've sort of extrapolated to 26 and then to 27. In the additional compensation column, if you see NA, that means I confirmed that they have no additional compensation. If there's a dash mark, that means we're pretty sure they don't, but I haven't gotten that 100% confirmed yet.
Okay, what comments or questions do we have on salary range? Any? None? No? All right. Mhm.
If somebody has interviewed and then the salary range doesn't quite meet their, what they'd like, is that negotiable at that point?
Well, it's always negotiable.
Okay.
The one thing I would say is that what I would recommend that the board do, and we can get into more of the details when we get closer to that point, is if I were the one to first reach out to the candidates to set up the interviews, for example, I would probably just want to make sure early on that they're comfortable with it. I mean, we can do it on the front end, you can do it on the back end. I think you want to make sure you do it though before there's an offer on the table.
Okay.
Certainly, just a matter of when you want to do it. I do think that range, that 160 to 180, looking at this data, and again, I just go back to you look at the range of experience that we're looking at here. I think that's going to capture. I don't think you're going to get anyone who's going to be insistent that they're outside that range.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions or comments about salary? No? Thank you. Any other items?
Nope,
under
that was
this?
just it. So again, the timeline is in the packet too. I did make that one adjustment that we talked about. I believe, Kristen, you were the one who made the comment about moving one of those dates because you were unavailable. So still, this would be the timeline. I think it's still a good timeline. It gives us plenty of breathing room. Gives us time to get some good applications out there and get those interviews scheduled, meet with all of you guys. And we can talk later too about if you want to have like an ad hoc committee of 2 or 3 of you to review the apps, or I just bring you all the apps. We can figure that out later when we
Sounds
get to
good.
that point.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate all of the work that has gone into this big process. All right, next item on the agenda then is discuss and take action on sewer backup claims, 201 Kearney Way. We have 2 items here that are potential closed session. So I would propose that we hear about them, go into closed session all at once. So with that, do you want to give us the update and then I'll read the statement and we'll take the vote?
Yeah, and you want to get the update on both of,
Sure.
we have we
Yeah.
have open comments for both
Okay.
the sewer backup claim, and then
Great.
Lauren has some comments on the Murphy Mill property. So on the sewer claim, this relates to the same incident that you spoke about, or that we spoke about at your last meeting. At that meeting, you had 3 claims that you considered. You did go into closed session. You had discussion, you received advice from legal, from liability insurance. You heard from utility staff. To my understanding, and I guess I look to Caitlin to be clear on this, is there any new data or information to share? Okay, so the information from utilities as well as the information from our experts that we consulted at your last meeting remains the same. The reason this claim is here today is because it came after we were able to process, to receive it and evaluate it in time for your last meeting. So same situation, it's a different unit that was damaged. You see the claim form in your packet, but all feedback from your staff and your consultants is identical. No updates on that matter.
All right, thank you. And then update on the next, and then we'll go back and take the vote. Sure. Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry, I got another presentation for you. All right, so we're talking about the Murphy's Mill building here. So just to go back a little bit, back in actually late 2024, this property was first listed for sale. That was brought to the village board, and then throughout 2025, I think the village board had several discussions on considering whether to purchase this property or not, given its location and history. Last year, the village agreed to split up an appraisal cost with the seller just to find out what an appraisal would be for the property. And then the last meeting where this was discussed was back in April. It was discussed again, but it was decided to wait to see if a private developer would pursue purchasing the property. So today, the property still remains listed for sale. The price was lowered to $425, and my presentation today is just to provide some additional input from a community development perspective to hopefully help continue the discussion and kind of get some input back from the village board on that. So I know you guys know this, but I thought it would be good to just kind of zoom out a little bit and talk about why we keep bringing this to you all. So why do we care about downtowns? There are so many reasons why we specifically look at and think about our downtown. It's an important piece of our community identity. We have shared gathering places in our downtown, and people kind of take ownership of that. It's an important piece of tourism. People want to visit communities that have nice downtowns. It's an important small business ecosystem. It's a great place to start a small business. And it also offers economic diversity. We have retail, dining, entertainment options in our downtown area. And it's the heart of our community. It's where most people, when they visit Waunakee, travel through and hopefully admire. And one building can positively or negatively impact others. So buildings, when we see redevelopment projects, that can often act as a catalyst for further development. At the same time, if we see buildings that are vacant for a long time or maybe neglected, that can also impact surrounding properties. And so we want to keep an eye on that and also, keep that in the back of our minds. So downtowns have a mix of both new construction and adaptive reuse of historic buildings. And I just wanted to kind of show a visualization of both. This new construction is obviously a little monotone maybe. And I pulled that as an example of it's harder to get character and buildings that look differently with new construction. Oftentimes, especially apartment buildings can start to kind of look the same. I actually think Waunakee's done a really good job with redevelopment in the downtown. We have some really nice looking buildings that fit the character. And so this isn't a dig at Waunakee at all. It's just kind of noting that I think it's important to have both new construction and adaptive reuse in mind when we think about our downtown. So why do we care about historic buildings? They add character, they add uniqueness and charm to our downtowns. They are a physical representation of our history and help us celebrate that and remember it. When you look at the train depot downtown, you're remembering how Waunakee became who we are today. And they provide authenticity to our downtown. The character that they bring, I think, it shows what our identity is to people who visit. So how are municipalities getting involved in historic buildings? I just wanted to provide two quick examples just to show that municipalities are financially getting involved in these buildings. So for example, the city of Verona provided funds to rehab an old school in their municipality and turned it into an artist co-working space as well as community spaces. This is called Art House 360. You can look it up. It's a really awesome project and is, I think, fully booked out of spaces for artists. And this has also served as a catalyst for larger redevelopment of the area. I have kind of a screenshot of some of the park stuff that they've done, but they've also had housing redevelopment in that area too. And so it's really brought vibrancy to that area. And Belleville, a smaller community, but they've been focusing on a train depot and old library that the village owns. They completed a couple years ago a highest and best use study and then used that information to put out an RFP to invite developers to submit ideas. They're now working with a developer on what they call the Yards project, which is reusing the old train depot. It's going to include a bike hub next to the trail, as well as a playground area and some kind of smaller food options as well. So kind of creating a kind of an active space in an area that was maybe less active. So now we get to the Murphy's Mill site. It's a downtown historic building. It's adjacent to village-owned depot as well as a parking lot. And it was identified in our comprehensive planning process as an opportunity site. I have a screenshot of some ideas that were put forth as part of that process and kind of shows that there are a lot of opportunities with this site as well as the surrounding areas if we want to continue to vision for what that area might look like down the road. And so I'll just end with what I think are maybe some benefits to really seriously looking at village ownership of this building. As I mentioned, historic preservation, if we purchase this property, we have control over the destiny of that building. It also gives us control over downtown property, which is not easy to do. And this is kind of a key area too, with it being right next to a public parking space in the depot. Also, logistically, it cleans up an entrance to the parking lot. As you can see, this red line here crosses through the parking lot. So by getting ownership, we can clean that up and make the lines a lot easier to understand. This would also create an opportunity to work with adjacent sites in that area to imagine some kind of larger redevelopment, as well as an opportunity to work with developers and/or community partners on adaptive reuse, like some of the examples I shared. And then finally, also a potential green space for downtown events. We've talked about, maybe this white shed building to the west of the building could come down, and that creates a large green space that could, activate that area even more. And that is the conclusion. Oh, Todd has a comment.
I'll just add in that why we're here tonight, but two reasons why we brought this back to you. One is there's a new community development director in town who is, as part of her job, looking carefully at opportunities within our comprehensive plan and within our TIF districts. So for her to provide her perspective on this as new and fresh to the discussions, to add to the discussions we've had, I think is important. Second, a couple weeks ago, I was contacted by the listing broker for the owner of their property wanting to speak with us, specifically in reference to the lack of activity from the private marketplace. And then I asked for the opportunity for Lauren and I to meet with the owner. We did that last Friday. And what we have to discuss with you in closed session is elements related to the terms that property owner may be willing to accept that are different than we've discussed before. So that's where we'll be heading in closed session.
Okay. Any questions for open session? Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Todd's saying, to the extent that you want to talk about proposed uses of the property, that would need to be open session. Terms and conditions of a potential purchase is closed session.
Okay. All right. So any discussions, anybody would like to entertain about uses of the building? No? All right.
I know there's existing, this is what is gonna happen to them. Oh, sorry, was that?
Nothing would happen to them as part of this plan. Obviously, if they see this and say, hey, we want to sell too, we definitely have a discussion about that with the village board. But we wouldn't be actively.
Well, if you're talking about tenants of this building.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and we've had early discussions with the owner who's had discussions with those tenants. And we have an understanding as to what their interests may or may not be in terms of remaining in the property. And those would be elements also related to sale terms that would be of concern to us.
I think for some of the uses in the past, we've had some work done on kind of mocking up what the space could look like if we took down what is the horse barn, carriage barn. That's not the right term for it. It was a
yeah.
stable at one point.
At this point, call it a long storage shed. Yeah.
Long storage shed. Yeah, there is not much historic there in that particular building, but what that could look like. We've had a couple of meetings where we've sketches of that. We haven't really gotten honed into what specifically could go in the building if we acquired it. Some of the things we have discussed in the past would be making it an art center, having Create Waunakee take up residence in there. We've talked about just simply rehabilitating it and reselling it once the rest of the property becomes more attractive. Lauren, what are some of the other things as you shaking, nodding your head?
Yeah, I know the newly created Waunakee Area Historical Society is looking for space.
Yeah.
That could be another opportunity. Yeah, lots of options. And I think by getting ownership, we can really seriously consider them.
All right. All right. Questions or comments? All right. Then before I read the statements and we contemplate going into open session, I would like to back up. I think the claimant for the condos is here tonight. Or is that, no?
I'm here just for that meeting or the discussion on it.
Okay. Do you want to, and is it your condo?
No.
No, okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was. For some reason, yeah.
1811 Division Street, right?
Kearney Way, the Kearney Way condominium.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I mistakenly thought you were the claimant and I was going to offer you the opportunity to say something. All right, thank you. All right. Well, with that then, let's go in, contemplate going into closed session at item number 5. The village board may convene in closed session as authorized by Wisconsin statute 19.85 1G for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. The village board may reconvene in open session and discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session. So with that, do we have a motion to go into closed session on this item?
I'll move we go into closed session.
I'll second.
Roll call vote.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Aaron Moran,
Yes.
Teresa Hansen,
Yes.
Sam Kaufman,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Jack Heineman,
Yes.
Nyla Fry.
Yes.
All right, item number 6 then, discuss and take action on potential purchase of property at 105 East Second Street, Murphy's Mill. The village board may convene in closed session as authorized by Wisconsin statute 19.85 1E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The village board may reconvene in open session and discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session. Do we have a motion to go into closed session on this item?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Aaron Moran,
Yes.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Sam Kaufman,
Yes.
Teresa Hansen,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Jack Heineman,
Yes.
Nyla Fry.
Yes.
All right, with that, we will go into closed session. If we decide to take action on either of these items, we will come back out of closed session, make a motion. Go ahead.
Yeah, we definitely will be coming back in on number 5.
Okay.
I would say.
All right, we will come back in. And making that motion in open session, we will not record that though, but the vote itself will be in the motion will be reflected in the minutes, which will be made publicly available. So with that, we will go into closed session at 8:15.
And Jack will be starting the closed session Zoom in just a moment.
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you.